What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 379 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's the hot tags of the week, where we're going to be breaking down some of the current events, the rumors, the news, the gossip, and everything else that we feel like talking about that happened over the past couple of days, mostly today, because we had virtually no hot tags, and then Monday happened, and Monday just went, here's a dozen of them. So we're going to get into all that kind of stuff in a minute, but first, let's introduce the people talking. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, is Robert DeFelice.
Tony, when do I get the upgrade where my name is a fruit name?
Depends. On growth, on sunshine, water levels.
Okay.
I say this as if I have any interest in gardening at all, and I don't. Fuck that. I would be perfectly fine if my front lawn was made out of AstroTurf. So I'll wear people down eventually. Caroline in the future is going to be like, all right, God damn it, we'll just do that. Like, yeah.
That's never gonna happen. And then you're going to merge all the AstroTurf together.
Yup, just have one lawn. And you don't need a front and back yard. You just have yard. It's my yard now. We're not talking about Roman Reigns today. Well, we are a little bit when it comes to Chronicle. But yeah, we got lots of stuff to break down here. So I don't have this in any particular order, and we're probably going to bounce around a little bit when I don't realize that some could have turned into something else. But let me get this one out of the way a little bit. I think that this one's not really tied to anything in particular. It's Tye Dillinger's ring name that he's going to be using on the independent scene. He is kind of going a little bit to the old school, and he has decided to go with Shawn Spears. And he was Gavin Spears in ECW back in the day, like the WWE version of ECW. But Shawn Spears, I mean, he clearly likes the Spears name, and there's some kind of value attached to it. What do you think about it? Yay or nay?
It sounds like something I would name my character in a video game, honestly. Like Shawn Spears, like that's my created character name. That's what it sounds like to me.
It's like the third brother in Double Dragon or something. Yeah.
I mean, if it works for him, by all means, go ahead and do it.
I'm surprised they didn't go with something a little bit closer to the Tye Dillinger name.
Maybe it's because Tye Dillinger wasn't over, but the number 10 was. So as long as you can call yourself, Perfect 10 or He's a 10, Shawn Spears, I think you'll be all right.
Or maybe like Tye Spears, like we would have kind of like kept the Tye thing going, or his name's Ronald O'Neill, so I would have even been more along the lines of Ronnie Spears, if you didn't want the Arnell kind of thing. Or O'Neill. But hey, if he likes Shawn Spears, I mean, we got a guy going out there calling himself The Undertaker, so it's you don't have to go by any kind of particular name. Dolph Ziggler learned that a long, long time ago.
And he's one of the best. The Undertaker is not Dolph Ziggler. I mean, Dolph Ziggler's good, but
But he's no Shawn Spears, right?
No, not by any means.
So with everything that we're talking about today, obviously leave your comments below, everybody, and tell us your opinions about that, including whether or not you like or dislike the Shawn Spears name. But we got lots of other hot tags to talk about too, so chime in your thoughts about that and all the other kind of things. Let's talk Hall of Fame, because we got a couple of things talking about the Hall of Fame here. One of them being they have officially announced that Torrie Wilson will be inducted into the class of 2019. And this was causing a little bit of some bullshit on Twitter. Twitter's been a lot of stuff lately where people were bringing that up, and Gail Kim went to Torrie's defense and said, of course she deserves to be in there, and all the other kind of things like that. Obviously, we will talk more in depth about the Hall of Fame when we do our Wrestling with the Past, but what are your thoughts on Torrie going in, generally speaking?
So when I wrote the piece on eWrestling News, I listed her accolades, and apparently it was flattering to the point where somebody said, wow, it seems like she wrote this article. Well, and listen, I can respect everything Torrie's done, but this is reaching, right? Like this is the epitome of reaching for a Hall of Famer.
The thing is, Torrie is one of those people that, in that era, she was a huge deal. It's just that era sucks. Like, if she would have been in, like, the current kind of, with a women, let's not, beat around in the bushes here. If she would have been around now, where she would have had to learn how to wrestle, maybe she would have been a champion and she would have been better. But she was out there in a time frame where all you needed to do was look hot, and she did. And she was a Playboy model, and that's huge. That's a big, big deal. But it does kind of seem like inducting Christy Hemme, or inducting, you know what? Ashley Massaro did more overall than Torrie Wilson. She just wasn't as popular. So it's sort of like you're going to lump all them all together as being, well, do they really, really deserve it? I'm fine with Torrie going in, but at the same time, why not, other than the fact that she's passed on and everything, like, why not Luna Vachon? Why not Victoria? She hasn't passed on, but you know what I mean. Why not Molly Holly hasn't been in yet, right?
Yeah, there's a weird groundswell for, like, yeah, fuck yeah, Molly Holly, which was one of the better wrestlers of her era, but it's still funny to me to see that generation's grown up and has a real fondness for characters who were kind of side characters, you know what I mean?
Like, to be perfectly honest, Melina deserves to be in the Hall of Fame more than Torrie, I think. There's a lot of people
Torrie even said in the interview with ESPN, she's like, people ask me all the time if I have any regrets because I never even competed in a championship level. And she said, well, at least I feel vindicated with this induction. And listen, Torrie was definitely one of the faces of the brand for, 2 to 3 years there. She was on all the posters. She got a lot of headlines for them with Playboy. I mean, she was important to the company, but it still feels like reaching.
You know why it does? It's because they're not trying to induct her as a manager or a valet or as a character. They're trying to induct her as a performer. Because if Stacy Keibler, when she goes into the Hall of Fame, because she will, Stacy Keibler was never like a women's wrestler for the most part, but Stacy deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And if you look at Torrie in the same kind of capacity as like Sunny, then totally, yeah, she's a Hall of Famer. If you look at her and compare her to Mickie James, you're like, well, one of these things is not like the other, you know?
Well, now keep in mind, when Sunny went in 2011, and they were still very much in the thick of the Kelly era.
Right.
Right now, they're in a time where whenever you pull out a name like Torrie for the Royal Rumble or the Women's Battle Royal, it seems weird because it's like she was really famous for the sexual side of it, and that's something that they've denounced.
Either way, she's going in, and that kind of calms the storm a little bit when people were saying like, well, Chyna's the only woman going in, and we're not going to have like a true female representative.
But hold on, why is that an issue? One thing I don't like is the whole need for quotas. Like, they could totally build this Hall of Fame ceremony around DX.
They could.
And just, Chyna's a woman, you got a tag team in the New Age Outlaws, you've got X-Pac and you've got Triple H, and then Shawn can kind of be on stage with all of them when they all take the stage. Like, what is wrong with that? Why does it need to be, and you've got to have 7 people, and there's got to be a woman, and
a tag team, and a celebrity, and...
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's just the way that they want to do it. The Legacy Award thing will be one thing, and the Warrior Award will be another one, and, But we do have some rumors of some other people that have been coming out. One of them, WrestleFotes, was popping up there saying about Torrie, and they were correct about that. 2 of the other names that I've been hearing from that source and other ones are Tazz and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Tazz would make a lot of sense to me because they are going to be in the New York area. They're not technically going to be in New York for WrestleMania, but then again, WWE seems to forget that over and over again. But the Hall of Fame is going to be New York based, so Tazz obviously has that ECW connection, and New York is sort of, you know, that kind of a thing and all that. So thumbs up on Tazz. He's got that whole, like, the side of the commentary that he could do. He's got the ECW in the ring stuff that he can fall back on when you're talking about what is the reason for him to go into the Hall of Fame and all that. So I like the idea of Tazz going in. What about you?
I like the idea as well. It's weird because, and we'll talk about ECW in a little bit, but Tazz in the WWE wasn't known for being much more than an announcer. Tazz, if you factor in the legacy of ECW, seems like he could be a surefire Hall of Famer. But that's like one of those, well, let's induct Abdullah the Butcher because he was important, even though he never actually wrestled for us. But Tazz, I feel the same way, even though Tazz was an active competitor, he wasn't great in WWE, and that's through no fault of his own. It's just how they ended up booking him.
Yeah, and the other thing is the Brutus the Barber Beefcake thing. And here's where I kind of go, what does the Hall of Fame standard mean? If you look at Brutus the Barber Beefcake, he was a big fucking deal who didn't amount to much.
Now, Brutus, I think, is more deserving than some of the names that are already in, like a Coco Beware, or
yeah, I would put Brutus over Coco.
Even like a Godfather, you know, like Godfather was good.
See, Godfather I'd put over Brutus because he's won championships.
Granted, but Brutus has main evented pay-per-views.
That's where it kind of goes like, well, Brutus the Barber Beefcake is a kind of ridiculous character and really not necessarily the best guy as far as, like, the most friendships right now in the wrestling business, it seems, and stuff. But at the very least, I understand that he was a big deal back then. And, you know, if you can induct him when he's still around, then sure, why the fuck not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think especially seeing as how many people haven't been able to be there for their induction, let Brutus be there. He main evented SummerSlams and Survivor Series, and like he deserves to be there. Now, will Hogan be there to induct him?
Well, that's kind of one of the other stories. Is the rumor going around is that they're not going to have anybody induct anybody.
So, like, they're taking the Oscars. There will be no hosts.
Kinda, yeah. I'm assuming that what they'll do is they'll have Jerry the King Lawler be the host, because he seems to like to do that, and they seem to like to put him in that role. And that he'll say something along the lines of, like, well, our next inductee is, you know, somebody who everybody knows because of her dog and because of, you know, her beautiful looks and, yeah, something like that.
No,
because
her
of
dog and her puppies. And
yeah, that would be great. He needs to say that now that you just brought that up, yeah. So then it'll be like, let's take a look at Torrie Wilson, and then they'll go to some kind of video package, and then it'll be, ladies and gentlemen, Torrie Wilson, and then she'll come out. I'm assuming that that's what they're going to do.
Do you think they're doing that to, you know, save time?
Yep, that seems to be the case, that they want to cut down on the amount of time, because they probably realized that, and this is not necessarily, like, through anybody's fault, but certain people, they haven't been in the spotlight in a while, and they ramble. And
well, I think you're thinking of Stan Hansen's You Gotta Have an Opponent.
That's my go-to one, because, I mean, he cut, like, a 25-minute promo about, like, how you need to have a fucking opponent. But, like, some people do that, and some people, as much as it's a feel-good moment, and it's, in a lot of ways, maybe the last moment that a lot of people will have, when you're the inductor, I don't think you should really milk it. If you're, like, for instance, Michael P.S. Hayes, he finally gets into the Hall of Fame and he wants to do the live performance of his theme and all that. Okay, I don't really think you necessarily need to, but when's the next time he's going to get a chance to do something like that? So give him a little bit of extra time to go ahead and do something like that. But you don't need 10 minutes to build up him giving his speech before he does that. Because then you're already going, all right, to induct the Freebirds, we're taking a 35-minute chunk of time. You know what I mean? And it's
but
like,
I will say, I've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's how it works.
Yeah?
Like, it is shockingly long. And when you see it on TV, it's heavily cut down, but it is shockingly long how these Hall of Fame inductions are.
And maybe even do something that if they want to have, like, I've always said this about the Oscars too. The Oscars, in my mind, are not the type of thing that you should ramble, and it's not the type of thing that you should list everybody that's ever done anything involved in any movie that you've ever been a part of and all that. And if you bring up a list and you go, I want to thank the third grip of the movie, and I want to thank the person who gave me a bagel on the one day because I was asking for it, whatever, then you're like, oh my god, can you just fucking leave? But with the Hall of Fame and WWE, it's good to have a wide variety of people, and it's good to have a lot of people that just tell some stories and stuff like that. And as much as it's kind of annoying that we wouldn't, if this is true, of course, this might not be true, but if we don't have somebody induct these different people anymore, that's going to kind of be a little bit of a disappointment. But if that cuts down an hour, I'm kind of all for it, you know?
I don't know, because I go back to last year, my favorite part of last year was Edge and Christian.
That's true.
You know? And I go back to last year as well, and part I didn't like so much, Paul Heyman absolutely crapping on the roster and Roman Reigns during his induction speech for Goldberg. But, like, these are moments that you'll never forget. But this does take away from certain things like, well, who inducts DX? Do you have Vince go out there and do it? You know?
The downside is you don't get those moments where they're telling, like, let me tell you a funny story about this person before I do that. But then obviously the good side is if you cut that time down, then you're not spending half the Hall of Fame waiting for them to induct people and then watching the last person talk to an empty crowd, you know? Ideally, if you could get the whole people with the induction stuff, if you could get them to be like, look, you've got a limit of 5 minutes, you know?
Do you think that a lot of this started with when they first moved to the network, and it was like no longer, okay, take as long as you want, this is a DVD thing, and we're gonna do, you know, Shawn Michaels inducting Kevin Nash, and then Shawn has to go out there with his speech and just rip it up and just say, here's Kevin Nash, we're short on time, he was great, he's the reason you have guaranteed contracts. Kevin Nash, everybody.
I don't know, because you would think, if anything, the fact that they have the network and they have no time constraints and they moved it to Friday instead of on Saturday, they should really just let people do whatever they want.
Yeah. I think I read that it's because superstars were starting to leave early because they're like, well, fuck this, we have to be up early tomorrow. I'm not staying for Hillbilly Jim's speech.
Yeah, and that's a downside, that they can't really tell the talent, you have to sit there and wait, and you also have to be up in 2 hours to do all that shit. But maybe, I don't know, maybe don't book them to do that stuff that early in the morning, you know?
Yeah. It really is on the company at the end of the day, but, you know, maybe this will make the experience better.
Maybe. It worked for the Oscars, so maybe it'll work for this. And if not, maybe this is a good year for them to test it out, and what are we missing out on, you know? Are we really missing out on Hulk Hogan inducting Beefcake? Are we really missing out on whoever would be inducting Torrie, you know?
Who would induct Torrie?
Who was she really, like, tied the most to?
The dog.
Yeah, that'd be great. The dog comes up, bark, 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 bark. And they're like, oh my god, just bring it home already. Go home, sit.
Good boy. I'm happy for Brutus the Roper Beefcake. I'm happy for the Honky Tonk Man. I like the idea of DX, even though I really think they should be the whole thing, because they're all so good, and that would be a marvelous class. But the reason you can't do that is because then it would be, oh, look at Triple H stroking his own ego, you know?
And who would induct who? Because what would you have? Razor Ramon inducts Sean Waltman.
Yeah, that seems
question mark for the New Age Outlaws.
The Hockey Talk band. He brought them together on an episode of Shotgun Saturday Night. Now, who would gonna go off on a little side here real quick, but who would have thought one of the better tag teams of the entire era would form when the Jesse James and Rockabilly got together on Shotgun Saturday Night?
Yeah, the Roadie and Rockabilly.
Like, fucking random, man. Awesome.
You never know. I mean, look at Team Hell No. I was like, oh, God, they're just pairing Daniel Bryan up with Kane. This is so stupid. And it's like, Team Hell No is kind of fun, you know? Sometimes you just have to see what works. And then other times you get tag teams where you're like, oh, my God, stop it. Don't put David Otunga with John Cena, you know?
Who's the other rumored name? The Hard Foundation's still rumored. I don't know if that's actually going to come to fruition. They might just do Jim.
It really should just be Jim Neidhart.
Yeah.
Bam Bam Bigelow's still in the running. We still need a celebrity. We still need a Warrior Award.
The celebrity really should be Cyndi Lauper, and I'll say it every time out. And really the Warrior Award?
The only other person it should be other than Cyndi Lauper is Muhammad Ali.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Those are the only two. Like, if you're ignoring that and you go, Jon Stewart, then it's like, fuck off, you know?
Is he from New York?
Yeah, I think so. They might end up doing that.
Well, you're onto something, pal.
Well, we'll see. I like Jon Stewart, but no, he doesn't need to go in this year. Or pretty much ever, necessarily.
And as far as the Warrior Award, I was down with the idea for a minute of Roman getting it. You know, but they probably wouldn't do that because they like to do the community outreach. But I like the idea of, hey, Roman just beat leukemia. Give it to Roman.
I'm thinking just do what Ultimate Warrior actually asked.
And induct Jim Johnston?
Do the people like Jim Johnston and all that don't get any credit instead of changing it to a completely different award. But, whatever.
Speaking of the Warrior Award, Dana Warrior's on the creative
there you go.
team now.
There's a good little transition. Yeah, supposedly she has joined the creative team primarily to help out with the women's division and to give some kind of female insight for that, which she may or may not actually have any talent in, because who knows? You know, what's his face? From She's All That, you know,
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Freddie Prinze Jr. He was part of the creative team for a little bit, and you know, Dana Warrior, maybe she has some kind of insights. You never really know for sure. And if we start seeing some really horrible suggestions coming out there with the women's division on Raw and SmackDown, then we know that maybe that's the case. And if we get some really, really good stuff, then we know maybe she's contributing to that too.
I'd never seen people just shit on something so fast. When it was reported that she would be joining the creative team, and this was first broken by Pro Wrestling Sheet, people were just like, so what, I just need my GED and I can be on the creative team? First of all, yes. You can apply for a writer's position just like you would any other job. But I think this could be good. It's an outsider perspective, but it's still within the bubble. You know, it could be a good thing. And WWE just lost their head writer for the women's division, Johnny Russo. And maybe Dana's going to fill in some of that, you know, missing creativity.
Maybe. You never really know. Could be a hit, could be a miss, could just be one of those things that this is all being blown out of proportion, and maybe she's going to help out with, like, the ambassador type side of things more so than the actual creative.
Right. But it does,
you know, it's just sort of, we don't fucking know.
It does tickle me to go, now, Asuka, what if you shook the ropes? now, Lacey, hear me out.
What if you shook the ropes? Well, the problem with Lacey Evans, she can't shake the ropes because she never gets to the ring. She just turns around once she gets to the bottom of the ramp. So, first things first, you got to take a little step at a time. Before you shake the ropes, go to the ring.
I like it. Let's see where it goes. You know, no harm, no foul. Other creative team updates. Jason Jordan is reportedly sitting in on the meetings now. And
that's pretty cool.
His ideas are reportedly, highly touted. They're like, hey, we like what this guy's thinking. And this is reported from WrestleVotes on Twitter, by the way. Lots of stuff from WrestleVotes lately.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, what do you think about that? I feel bad for Jason. He didn't get a fair shake. I mean, thank God the whole my son thing ended with Kurt Angle, but he still didn't get a fair shake.
Yeah, I still really wish that he would be able to return to the ring, even if it was just to reteam the whole American Alpha thing, but wanted a little bit of closure with the Kurt Angle story. I wanted to see Jason Jordan actually become something. At the very least, to become an Intercontinental Champion. I think he could have done that. It's a shame he didn't. But if he's good in that role, then awesome for him. You always hate to hear that somebody did the whole injury thing and then they put him backstage and they suck at it. And then it's like, all right, well, then what are they going to do? They got the whole rest of their life ahead of them. What are they going to do? Arn Anderson, let's talk about him if we're talking about people working backstage. The rumors of how he got released and why he got released have been expanded on a little bit recently, because it had been originally suggested out there that Vince McMahon and Arn Anderson had some issues for a while, and that something had happened that had led to them getting into an argument and Arn being released. Well, now, if it's true, which it may not be, but if it is true, it seems the incident that had happened was Alicia Fox showed up drunk, and Arn Anderson was in charge of producing her match, and he let her wrestle. Which, if that's the case, there's a couple things that need to be addressed. Number one, why would you let somebody who's drunk wrestle? That's definitely not something that's a good idea.
Well, by God, back in my day, Kerry Von Erich used to snort 6 lines of coke and walk straight to the ring, and he was fine. I'm sorry, that was just a really weird Southern thing. So, that's where my mind went, because he's probably just like, she's a little tipsy, she'll be out there for 4 minutes, she'll be fine.
And, they are, Arn Anderson wasn't there, but the whole instance of what happened with Jeff Hardy in TNA should be the last time that something like that happens, But that is already
you see what Darren Young had to say about this?
No, what did he put?
So he said, it's a rock and roll lifestyle. I lived it, and we've all made some bad decisions, having a little liquid courage to get us through it. If firings or suspensions are going down, just give the whole team a 30-day sabbatical. That's interesting to me, because we often hear, this generation, they just play video games and they don't really live the lifestyle. And this tweet seems to suggest maybe we all go into the ring a little intoxicated. You don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, that's another thing too, is even if you just go, okay, well, it's a thing that happens and whatever. A lot of people are going with the idea, and I agree with them on this. Why would Arn Anderson be the one that would be necessarily the one that gets released while Alicia Fox doesn't get any kind of release? Well, that's where some of the other things come into play. Supposedly, she was offered a chance to go to rehab and turned it down and quote unquote went AWOL. That's not good.
But is she known for being a drunk? That's my first question. Because if you're going to offer somebody rehab based on a first time thing, I don't think that's necessarily a call for rehab. Maybe she just drank a little too much. But I understand why they do it, because it's ultimately on their shoulders, whether it's fair or not. Whatever happens to any wrestler, even somebody that isn't wrestling anymore. If Greg the Hammer Valentine just drank himself to death tonight, they'd still go, that's WWE's fault, stupid wrestling. So they feel the need to cover themselves in that regard, but I don't know. It kind of sounds like maybe they didn't need to offer her rehab, unless this is a thing that's been going on that we don't know that, that's very possible. And as far as Arn getting punished and she's not getting punished, it's kind of like when you have kids and the youngest one does something and you just look at the oldest one and goes, "This is your fault because you're older and you should be more responsible and you should be watching them."
And it's like Arn Anderson, so they're going like doing the whole thing like an older kid would do, where it's just kind of like, "But mom," like,
but she's a grown woman. I mean, by God, I saw Ric Flair drink 12 full cases of beer, walk into the ring, and he was fine. I don't know why.
I don't know why you're giving him that accent. So yeah. So we're gonna come back to this in a minute because breaking news: King Kong Bundy died.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that's just broke about 2 minutes ago.
What the fuck?
So
oh.
There you go about that. That's Gregory Helms posted that.
Raw reaction from me there. What?
Yeah, Helms has up on his Twitter account for 12:29 in the morning. We're 12:30 something here. R.I.P. my friend. Thanks for your humor and kindness. Hashtag King Kong Bundy.
Is he in the Hall of Fame? I swear to fucking God, he better.
Nope, I don't think so. Which WrestleMania 2, King Kong Bundy.
Wow,
would have made a lot of sense if he would have gone in this year.
Tonight is crazy as far as hot tags are concerned. King Kong
this
Bundy?
Is the type of day that we usually go, God damn it, everything happened on a Tuesday, and we would have been able to talk about it. Now it all happened on a Monday. Or we're going to get even more shit tomorrow, and then we're going to be like, holy shit. We got like 5 weeks worth of hot tags in one time. Like, yeah, so
oh, man.
Hot take on King Kong Bundy. I mentioned this before, but King Kong Bundy's the brother of my old gym coach, and I always thought that was kind of a neat little thing that, like, he came from basically kind of like my hometown and stuff like that. Never really got much of a chance to meet King Kong Bundy, but my gym coach was fucking huge. So, like, I mean, that dude was like 7.5 foot tall. So, he was a great guy. And if King Kong Bundy was anything like his brother, then, you know, the Pally's people, they run into in packs, I guess. But, he's a guy that should have been in the Hall of Fame before. And he should have been definitely in the Hall of Fame this year. Because if you want to tie in Madison Square Garden and WrestleMania 2 and all that kind of stuff, then I hope, at the very least, if they can't do something like insert him into the Legacy Award or something like that, I would like to see a quick induction or something, because now he's not going to be able to do it. So that sucks.
So my history with King Kong Bundy is limited. I was born in 93. I will say this. One of the first wrestling matches I ever downloaded was WrestleMania 2, him and Hogan in the steel cage. And because it was such an early time, like this is like 2002, and I had like a full WrestleMania main event, I watched that match like 30 times. And I really enjoyed it. I really, got to appreciate Bundy and that kind of era. And fun fact, that was the first match in the historic blue bar cage. So Bundy can always say he broke that in.
I miss the old blue bar cage.
And yeah, the blue bars. But they do look like they would hurt like hell.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good thing they're not around. But yeah, Bundy, man, that fucking sucks. Again, if you're Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair, you gotta be just feeling a great despair. And so many of your peers are just passing away, and it's life, but it's still sad to see,
Yeah, and it's something that has to weigh on you a lot, because the more you see the people around you at that age, or even younger too, with certain people, the more you see them passing away, the more that you're like, uh-oh. Yeah. But let's go back to the Alicia Fox thing. Do you think Alicia Fox is going to get released from this, or do you think that this is something that they're just going to be like, well, shit happened?
I mean, if she doesn't, then wow, she's got some strong staying power, because let me tell you, she's been there for a very long time. She has been there longer than any other woman on the roster at this point, right? She
I think
debuted
so.
on the main roster before or after Natalia. I know they were right around the same time because it was the summer of 2008. But man, Alicia Fox. I hope she doesn't get fired from this unless it's like a serious problem. Then yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
That's the thing. It's a serious enough problem that they need to get her to go to rehab. If that's something that she had that whole like blow up backstage with Rhonda's husband and everything, and I don't know. She seems like that's one of those problems maybe, and the only way to fix that is to fix it. You can't just kind of let it go. Oh, it happens every once in a while. So she made her main roster debut June 13th, 2008. And Natty made her main roster debut on April 4th, 2008. If I'm looking at this correctly. So, yeah, April 4th, 2008. And Alicia Fox was June 2008. So, Natty's the one that's been around the longest then.
It's still pretty crazy.
Yeah. They both were obviously contracted by WWE 2006, 2007. And FCW and all the other kind of things that go along with that. But Alicia Fox has been around for a long-ass time. And she's honestly the type of person that if she can make sure that she doesn't tarnish her legacy, she should go into the Hall of Fame at some point. Hopefully she doesn't do anything to fuck that up.
Agreed.
I lean a little bit into the idea that if Arn Anderson honestly was responsible for saying yes or no for her competing, I can get why Vince McMahon would have been like, what the fuck, and potentially fired him or suspended him or admonished him in some way or something like that, because you really shouldn't let people do that, especially for like a stupid house show. Like, you could just substitute that shit. It's a house show. Nobody cares. It's a different story if it's, well, let's substitute the main event of fucking WrestleMania. No. You put somebody else like Nikki Cross in the match, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. It's a damn shame. Now, was this the match from the screenshot from earlier?
No, that was something else, I think.
Because the rumor that I had seen when I read about this early in the day was she hasn't wrestled since the incident.
Right.
And if that was the last match, boy, what a way to go out.
Literally?
Yeah.
Well, if she does get released, obviously we will have that as a hot tag in the future, but maybe not. I don't know. Speaking of house shows, though, let's just do this really quickly. I thought it was kind of interesting. People started going nuts about this, being like, oh, there's a new WWE Championship, and it's like, it's not the fucking case. Some fan had a blue-strapped WWE Championship that they had made, and AJ Styles saw it at a live event, and he held it up, and people snapped some pictures in the ring, and he was essentially just kind of like, oh, isn't this kind of cool? And people are like, oh my god, the championship's changing. It's like, no.
Now I can see the hysteria, because it's a blue-strapped WWE title. And now who's to say if they wouldn't just say that the Universal title's on Raw and it's red? SmackDown needs a blue title. And now I hear that SmackDown was initially supposed to get the Universal title, so there very well could be a blue championship just floating around somewhere.
Hopefully Paige doesn't have it.
Oh. Paige, yeah.
I don't like the blue straps, so obviously I'm hoping that never is the case, but if WWE were going to have that, they wouldn't debut it in the middle of a house show for a guy who's not the champion. Like, the end. But the idea behind it, I can understand some people thinking that could potentially happen in the future, and if they ever do decide to switch that, they very well could. They could just have the WWE Championship move over to Raw, the Universal Championship move over to SmackDown, and have one segment in the ring where they just go, we're going to unveil the new Universal Championship. Look at that. It's got a blue strap. The end. It's not that hard. Get that out of the way. Let's talk about another thing here. R-Truth said he's going to start a podcast soon. That's really all the information about it. He just said he's working on a podcast as far as some of the other projects he's got going on. Do you think you'd listen to an R-Truth podcast?
Do you think it'll be co-hosted by Conrad Truthson?
If that's the case, then I would definitely check it out.
It'll be interesting. He's got an interesting life. I'm sure he's got some stories to tell.
What do you think that he would call it?
The truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I was thinking podcast over there. What's up? Some kind of stupid ass name.
Honest to God, it's probably going to be called "What's Up with Our Truth," or
Yeah,
"What's
probably.
Up with the Truth."
Yeah, something like that. Or some kind of pun off of killing, but I don't think so.
Doubtful.
Killing it with our truth, something like that.
Yeah, but podcast over there, what's up? I'd give it a listen at least once.
But he has to sing the intro. Podcast over there, what's up?
If you hear me,
hit that subscribe button. We're talking shows here. Let's move to the discussion on the two WWE Network things that had popped up. One of them being WWE Untold, the second coming of ECW, which I didn't even know that there were actually 2 episodes of WWE Untold that had been released beforehand, like last year. Especially because they advertised this as being the premiere of WWE Untold.
Because I think the first couple ones were just on YouTube. Kind of like how Arrival is on the network now, that it was just on YouTube.
Okay, that's why then.
I didn't know about the Mankind one. Actually, is that the one where it's actually Undertaker talking to Mick Foley about it?
I don't know. I haven't actually got a chance to watch that because I didn't know that those 2 existed until Raw had started. But I did check out the second coming of ECW. Did you get a chance to check that out?
Yes. As I told you, I hate when you have these really cool topics in WWE. It's just like 20 minutes when you can fill 3 hours with so much other shit. And this was a really cool discussion. I would have loved to dive more into the Shane McMahon idea of what ECW is going to be. And he kind of wrapped it up nicely and basically said, it's NXT now. But it's amazing to think that Shane was that much of a forward thinker 13 years ago.
To even think about streaming instead of putting it on a traditional cable network.
And they did start doing shit like that. Like, I remember they had something called the Hardcore Hangover, where you were actually able to download like, Windows movie files of the matches, and they put the matches out there for free. They did that for about a couple months.
Wow, I don't remember that at all.
And I always thought that was really cool. But it's so much fun to see, what ideas had gone into the ECW reboot. And also, it would have been really cool to listen to The Miz and Zack Ryder and Kofi Kingston talk about, their time, because they kind of just breezed right by that. But really, there's some interesting stories there too, where, you're on this ECW brand and you're kind of treated like the redheaded stepchild, but you're also getting a chance to flesh out your character.
Well, you're literally the redheaded stepchild if you're Sheamus on that brand. But yeah, that was cool to see them say things like, The Miz put it out there. He said basically people had told him, if you can't make this work, you're going to get fired. You're on the C show. Like, this is like your last call, essentially. And, that's interesting to hear Big Show talk about the reaction that he got against Batista at One Night Stand. And
yeah, and I would literally saying, I have no clue how to turn a crowd like that.
And I would have liked, even though I'm not the biggest ECW fan out there, I would have liked to have seen an extra 2 hours worth of this kind of material. I like this quite a bit. This is already on my list. It's one of my favorite, new kind of programming things of the network for the year.
Now, it's interesting to me that you say that you're not an ECW guy. You're of the generation, and you're in the region where it would have been very popular. So what were your early memories of the original ECW?
I had been to an NWA ECW show, one of those, it's at the VFW type things or something. And I remember thinking to myself, well, none of these guys feel like they're a star, like the people in WWE or the WCW people. There's a big difference between Sandman and like The Rock.
Or,
It didn't click to me. And even when it came to the like lesser people in WWE, like the Headbangers, I remember thinking like, well, the Headbangers are better than any tag team that ECW has to offer. And then it's like, you know, the Dudley Boys are so much better than what the Headbangers ended up being, but it felt so like lower that as a kid I couldn't get past that, because I didn't have that mentality to think like, just because it's not the big deal doesn't mean it's not necessarily potentially better in some ways. And I still can't get into it. Like, I mean, I've talked to Jim Molyneux so many times. Jim Molyneux, for anybody who doesn't know, former ECW referee, and he's the one who owns and runs OTW that I work with. And Jim's got like, you know, oh, I got this funny story about Sabu backstage and whatever like that. And it's like, I really could have been sitting him down and been like, yo, tell me more and stuff. And I'm like, I don't really care. Like, that kind of thing. It's a shame, because these people, like, their whole lives were ECW, but I was just never a big fan of them. I'd put on the show every once in a while when it would air, and I'd be like, I don't really know if I want to watch this whole episode. Everything's like grainy footage, and who the fuck is this guy that's coming out here named Jerry Lynn? He seems like he's just like a Chris Jericho knockoff, and it's like that, you know, the context of that time frame. it's funny.
And I learned quickly, because I'm of the generation who saw the Rise and Fall DVD and like fell in love, and I found a few matches on the internet, and again, really good in short spurts. I got an ECW show from '96 and I was so excited, and the first match was the Dirt Bike Kid versus El Puertorriqueño, and my excitement died. And I was like, all right, this is so much better as the hardcore TV show where everything is like really fragmented and you got cool music videos playing over everything. Because the shows themselves weren't that, you know, desirable.
Yeah, they really weren't. And despite that, I'm still really interested in some of the, like, Paul Heyman talking about, well, I knew that this was going to be crap out within a year, or Sandman saying, you know, we never expected them to hire us and different things. So I definitely recommend checking that out, everybody. If you haven't watched the Untold Second Coming of ECW, go ahead and listen to that one. More so listen to it, because it's mostly an audio type thing, but that is something that they debuted. And they also debuted or not debuted Chronicle, but they put up another episode of Chronicle, and this one's about Roman Reigns, where he basically sort of just runs down his whole thing about coming back and announcing that he was going to return to the ring and stuff, and it was fine. It wasn't all that special, all that different. I still say worth checking it out, but you're going to reach a point where they're going to just pretty much show you his in-ring promo for about 2 minutes, and you could skip that, and you could skip a couple of spots here and there. It wasn't as good as Untold. That's in my mind.
Definitely not as good as Untold, but I enjoyed Roman talking about the kind of leukemia he has and how there are advancements where he was fortunate enough to just have to take a pill and not go through radiation. And he also said that he has arthritis, which is like, wow, kudos to you for pulling through and doing what you do. But yeah, I'd say check it out, especially because Roman is still riding high. Like, we're still very much in a positive Roman era, and I'm all for it.
How fucking feel good was that with we'll talk about it when we get to the predictions and stuff, but just, or, you know, reaction on Raw, just like, hey, the Shield's back, and it's like, yeah, I can actually be happy for a little bit or something.
I will talk about it real quick. The Shield fist thing will never not be a major pop. Because even when they were shitting all over Roman, the minute he looked at Seth and Dean, they go crazy. Because the Shield was probably the last, like, organically WWE built, feel-good thing. And I think a lot of people have fond memories of that. You know, Jordan from Smark Moment, that was like her beginnings of wrestling for her. So she's got a huge emotional attachment. I think a lot of people have that as either the last thing that you were marked for or like the first thing.
Yeah.
So really cool.
So let's talk events now. We have 2 more hot tags to go through. Get this one out of the way a little bit. AEW All Elite Wrestling announced what their July event is going to be, which is called Fight for the Fallen, and it's taking place at Daly's Place in Jacksonville on July 13th, which is 1 day before Extreme Rules, which is a little bit fucking annoying because I needed to adjust my schedule to be like, okay, that week we're going to have to do double pay-per-view predictions and double pay-per-view post shows. That's going to be real fucking fun.
You want to talk about? You want to talk about the month before or the 2 months before?
Yeah, well, that's our next hot take. I hate the name "Fight for the Fallen."
It's fine. It's one of the first things that they trademarked, and the proceeds are going to victims of mass shootings. So I get it.
Yeah, it's like it makes sense, but it's just so bland indie type feel to me. We
still don't know if that's all this is going to be, and I love the concept of AEW, but we don't know.
Yeah. Fight for the Fallen doesn't sound like a WWE pay-per-view event to me. Then again, they had Great Balls of Fire, so what the fuck do I know? Like Fight for the Fallen comes off to me like an Impact thing, and that's not good.
I think we'll have to see. I know right now that there's going to be an all-out. There's going to be Fight for the Fallen, and there's Double or Nothing. We don't know if these are going to be very Bush League names. We still don't know the structure of their show. All I know is that All In looked competitive, and if, Double or Nothing looks as competitive as All In did, then we could be in a good standing. I do know that I live in Florida, and if I'm still living in Florida come July 13th, I'll be there, I want to go to an All Elite show.
And I don't live in Florida, so I sure as fuck am not going to be there. But Extreme Rules is happening in the Wells Fargo Center, so I might be there.
Yeah. Now, that would be interesting. And then you're going to have to compare the 2 shows, and this will be the first time in a long time where WWE is up against direct competition almost that isn't like their own homegrown NXT.
And if that ends up being like the show blows everybody out of the water and then Extreme Rules really sucks afterward, it's going to reflect really poorly on WWE.
I wonder if, that goes into their philosophies already. I know AEW signed Bea Priestley, who's a UK superstar, and she's going to be debuting at Fight for the Fallen.
Not a Double or Nothing?
Not a Double or Nothing. She's coming in for the second show. And we do know that they have Chris Jericho. They have Kenny Omega. They could pull off some great things.
Yeah, until we get some kind of confirmation that it's good or bad, it's all still kind of question marks. But
and that's all going to depend on the month of May.
Yeah. This is, let's put it this way. At the beginning of the year, they didn't announce like shit when it came to what the schedule was for 2019 and the WWE pay-per-view schedule. So I was sort of leaving things up in the air as being like, well, I don't know. And all this kind of stuff happened just out of the blue the other day. And now we know what the schedule is going to be. Even though they are not still announcing some of those things, it's like we're getting confirmation of some of them, so we know that this is true. And to give everybody a rundown just verbally and all that, I'm going to do that in a minute. But if you want to see the full schedule, go to smarkoutmoment.com. Go to, the WWE pay-per-view schedule. It's on the nav bar underneath pay-per-view events, and you can find it in multiple different places. But this is what we've got coming up ahead. We got Fastlane on March 10th, this Sunday, which, of course, we're going to be doing our predictions for that and our post-show for that. We got NXT TakeOver New York happening, and the Hall of Fame, and the WrestleMania 35, all that block. That's that kind of a thing. There's an Untitled right now Saudi Arabia show, which is kind of funny because they're constituting this international event because they don't want to call it like, oh, this is the Saudi Arabia show, but that's what it is. So don't be shocked about that kind of thing. That is happening on, where is it on here? On May 3rd.
Ugh.
On May 19th, jumping up 2 months from what it usually is Money in the Bank. That's been confirmed already. Then we're going to get a standalone NXT TakeOver event, which is NXT TakeOver San Jose. That's happening on June 8th. This is ignoring Double or Nothing, too, because Double or Nothing is happening in May. June 16th, just the week after the June 8th TakeOver event, is going to be Backlash, which is interesting because that means that they normally would have done, like what they did last year, they did TakeOver the night before Money in the Bank. Well, they swapped Backlash and Money in the Bank. And because they swapped that, and they decided to not do it the night before, there's an odd change of scenery with that. That means Backlash isn't happening after WrestleMania. Money in the Bank is. So we're going to go straight from Money in the WrestleMania to the Superstar Shakeup to Money in the Bank. Very interesting. Then we got the TakeOver thing. Then we got Backlash. On July 14th, I mentioned before, the night after the Double or Nothing, or not the Double or Nothing, the AEW Fight for the Fallen, is Extreme Rules in the Wells Fargo Center. Then we have what had been previously announced is TakeOver Toronto and SummerSlam on August 10th and August 11th. Hell in a Cell is again fucking returning because why not? Ugh. It's going to be September 15th. Here's the one that I'm going to come back to. Clash of Champions is happening October 6th. Then we have another Saudi Arabia show on November 1st. NXT TakeOver Chicago 3, or whatever they're going to call it, is the night before Survivor Series, November 23rd, November 24th. And we finish out the year with Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, again, fuck you, on December 15th. So, number one, I hate the fact that TLC and Hell in a Cell are still in there, but we talk about that all the time, so I'm not going to, go down that kind of thing. We have 2 Untitled Saudi Arabia shows that are being very, very much not attributed to right now. No Evolution.
I call bullshit right there. I think Evolution's either right after Mania or right before Survivor Series again.
Well, looking at the schedule that they have right now, unless they want to really make everything just kind of like crammed in there, I would think that Evolution wouldn't really have a spot to go other than potentially somewhere after Clash of Champions at the end of October. Or, yeah, that would be the only time to do that right before the Saudi Arabia show on November 1st.
Well, because they can do whatever they want because it's an all-women's show. And they can just keep the 2 shows separate, like Clash of the Champions, or we know the Saudi Arabia show will be an all-men's show. So they can kind of work that into whatever they want. Now, Money in the Bank in May. Boy, we're just not going to have time to breathe. Because how are you going to tell me that we're going from fucking Mania to Saudi Arabia to Money in the Bank, which is usually like our summer King of the Ring Big 4 style event?
The good thing with that, though, potentially, is we know that WWE really fucking hates working. Like, let's just be honest. Like, if they can figure out a way to do a rematch or to do the cop-out, they do it all the time. And Backlash for so many years, or Payback, or when they would do both, Payback and Backlash and different things like that, so often after WrestleMania, they just went, well, you know what, let's just do a rematch of WrestleMania. But Money in the Bank, they don't have to work like that. They can say, we don't really know what to do for a lot of these people. Let's throw them into the Money in the Bank match. And then they can do half as many feuds. And maybe that ends up getting a better card out of it,
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if Money in the Bank should be so close to Mania. Because what are they going to do? Hot shot a cash in just because, well, we promised no automatic rematches, but if we have a cash-in, then we can just do a rematch at Backlash and say we're giving them this rematch because they didn't get a real opportunity when it came to defending their title. Because they're obsessed with pushing the fact that there's no automatic rematch clauses, except for Shane McMahon and The Miz, who have what is seemingly an automatic rematch.
Oh, they do that whole, like, there's no automatic rematch clauses, but we're just going to announce it.
Right.
Yeah, which is like, okay, you didn't change anything.
And then there was the one that you had brought up earlier with October 6th being Clash of the Champions, and October 4th, SmackDown moves to Fox. Now, I'm gonna stick my neck out here and just say it. They're merging the brands.
And I don't know if I'm 100% in for that or like totally against it or what, but at the very least, it's very suspicious that that's happening because we didn't get Clash of Champions the past couple of years. And this is happening right before Survivor Series. It's also happening right before a Saudi Arabia show. So if they do this, they can very well, I can see it happening. They go with SmackDown on October 4th is this big, like, we're going to have everybody from Raw and SmackDown. And, you know, oh, like the big show, like for the big debut of this new SmackDown on Fox, we have all hands on deck. Every person who's a big name, all of the champions, we're building towards this thing called Clash of Champions, which is a very easy thing to market too. Like for the people that are going to be tuning in that aren't wrestling fans, Clash of Champions, you know what it is. Something like Survivor Series, you're like, what? It's a series of what? Something like Takeover, it's like, well, are they going to fight people from that area? Like, you know, Hell in a Cell even is a little bit difficult to kind of get into because you're going, well, what's the cell? Like, is this like a prison cell, whatever? Clash of Champions, it's the easiest thing to market. You have a clash of the people who are champions, the end. And it could go one of two ways. Clash of Champions, Night of Champions, whatever. Sometimes they've had it where it's just every championship is on the line. And other times they've had it where it's been champion versus champion. If they go champion versus champion here, I think we're merging the titles. And they unify them. They establish that there is no brand split anymore. And when it comes to the Saudi Arabia show, well, you have everybody all hands on deck kind of anyway. And you take from October 6th onward, you've got a full month and a half before you have to build, like, you know, October 6th, technically, if you skip past the Saudi Arabia show, Survivor Series isn't until November 24th. That's over a month. In that time frame, you can set up, here's team whatever against team whatever, and it's not Raw versus SmackDown, because we don't have general managers anymore either. Who's going to go, oh, this is going to be Team Raw and Team SmackDown, and I'm going to represent them and whatever. Well, if the McMahons are all good with each other, they're not going to be bitching and trying to one-up each other, you know? And if they control everything, Shane shouldn't be like, I'm taking on the SmackDown crew. It wouldn't make any sense. So I didn't think that they were going to be merging these brands until this happened with Clash of Champions. Now I'm thinking that it's a really solid chance.
Well, I've said this on a few podcasts. Like, we merged the women's tag division because there was no other way to do it. You kind of look at the Raw Women's Championship picture right now, and I got a total kick out of the fact that it's established that these women are fighting for the Raw title, and yet Becky and Charlotte's graphics still insist on saying SmackDown Live. And we're slowly moving towards that merging into one brand. We don't need the split. Even with the NXT call-ups, they're between both shows. I don't know. I think the signs are there.
The only thing that really is going to put a kind of twist in this is a superstar shakeup. But fuck, they might look at this as going, well, we don't want to announce this yet. So let's have the Superstar shakeup. Let's switch things up. And we've got Money in the Bank, and we've got Backlash, and we've got the Saudi Arabia show, and we've got Extreme Rules, and we've got SummerSlam and Hell in a Cell. And that'll be a whole lot of time frame where we can do this whole Superstar shakeup amounted to much. And then after that point, then they go, you know what? Clash of Champions, we're going to merge the titles. And the only difference with that is if they do, in fact, stay on Friday nights, that's a weird travel schedule for people to have.
I still don't think they're going to be live. Even though, like, I guess Fox executives are under the impression, but SmackDown has never taped on a Friday, ever. They've done Tuesday, and that's it. That's why when they moved it to live, it became a Tuesday night show.
I hope that they do something where they just make it Tuesdays. Like, I honestly don't like the Friday thing, but I don't know. We'll see. Clash of Champions being there is extremely suspicious. If Clash of Champions was happening like 2 months beforehand, I would still be suspicious of it. Or if, like, say Clash of Champions was December instead of TLC, then I wouldn't think anything of it at all. I would be like, oh, look at that, they're bringing Clash of Champions back. But 2 days after the whole SmackDown goes to Fox thing, way too coincidental.
I'm actually very surprised every time I see something like this. They brought back Clash of the Champions, dropped it, brought it back. They brought back Backlash, and that seems to be sticking around. I'm very surprised that they haven't brought back Cyber Sunday. Why isn't that a thing in today's digital age? Why is Cyber Sunday not a thing?
I mean, for fuck's sake, they have so many different ideas that they could do. If you don't want to do Cyber Sunday as a pay-per-view, just do it as a special episode of Raw. Like, you can't call it Cyber Sunday, but, like, you know, just do an episode of Raw where you kind of get that gimmick going. You can't do Taboo Tuesday, because why would it be taboo, you know?
Yeah, I guess. What a weird thing that was when they announced Taboo Tuesday. And I'm very surprised that we're not doing, hey, you guys want Becky Lynch? Vote her in for this championship match. You know?
That's why they used to, yeah.
Like, that used to feel so special as, you know, an 11-year-old being like, I get to vote on who gets the world title shot. Well, of course I'm going to vote in Shawn Michaels and then he'll lose. But, like, but you don't see that as a kid. And maybe the product doesn't need to be PG, but I think they really need to start kind of thinking, who are we appealing to? Are we appealing to the smart mark that knows everything that we're doing is not real? Or do we want to try to hook that kid and go, hey, you can vote for Seth Rollins to challenge Brock Lesnar? I don't know.
I still don't get, like, why they don't have things like, they've built up enough stock in the name No Mercy, and they still want Hell in a Cell to be a separate pay-per-view. Like, that no matter what storylines are happening, fuck you, we need to have a Hell in a Cell match in September. Why?
Because it's Hell in a Cell. And I gotta be honest, I don't understand how tables, ladders, and chairs went from a stupid Mick Foley take on the Wizard of Oz to it is now a pay-per-view that we see regularly.
That we see every year at the end of the year, like clockwork, as if it's as important as goddamn Royal Rumble. It's like, it's TLC. It's the stupidest name.
It really is.
I get, like, Tender Love and Care, TLC, haha, that's funny. That's a gimmick you do one time. It's as dumb as the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view. Because they have so many, like, you can use No Mercy. You can use Breaking Point. You can use Slamboree. It's a stupid gimmicky name, but whatever. And also, this isn't factoring in, too, if they continue to do what they had done before, which is Starrcade, then that'll be in November as well. And it's not a pay-per-view, but it's a they were saying before that they were thinking about recording more house shows and making them special events on the network. So right now we've got all of these events that we were just running down, and there's the potential that we get something like a Great American Bash or a Starrcade, or what were some of the other ones that they had put out there? Like, there are a couple of them that I remember them saying that they would end up doing.
They did a Beast in the East.
Yeah, the Beast in the East thing. They could always do Halloween Havoc if they wanted to.
That one, that's the one that really irks me because it's such a fucking cool name for an October show, Halloween Havoc. How have you not taken that? Of everything else you've taken, you took December to Dismember, you took Great American Bash, you haven't taken something cool like Halloween Havoc.
Very strange. But that means that our schedule for Smack Talk has lots of pay-per-view predictions and lots of pay-per-view post shows. But we do have, at the very least, right now, I actually have it set up that we have everything potentially covered all the way up until June 19th.
Now, I'm assuming
how
that's
crazy
with
it is.
the couple of mailbags in there. Really, Callum's idea of let's kind of make the mailbag a quarterly thing is starting to sound like a good idea, just to give us more legroom for like unique discussions. I want to do a discussion on ECW. Like, after watching the show tonight, I want to talk about like the old ECW and the new ECW, and I'd love to have these discussions. And with how packed the schedule is, it doesn't look like we're gonna have a lot of time for Mount Rushmores or play the game or things like that.
Well, things do get a little bit lightened up when it comes to June, because we've got a free month in June. We've got a free month in June, a free week in June. We got 3 free weeks in July because that AEW show is the same week, so it's like, hey, fuck you, pal. We've got 2 free weeks in August. We've got 2 free weeks in September, 2 in October.
That we know of right now. We could easily be filled up with shows.
We have 1 potentially in November, but I already have an idea for that one. That's the one that we didn't do the last time, which is Time Machine Dream Team. We've got a kind of question mark when it comes to December, because it's all a matter of, at the end of the year, Wednesday falls on December 25th. So that's kind of like, well, we're not doing anything on fucking Christmas. Sorry, guys. So we'll have to see when it comes to that. But
and with that being said, Happy New Year. It is 2020. Let's grab this year by the balls, shall we?
My list goes all the way up until February 5th right now.
That is disturbing.
To episode number 417. Or week number 417, I should say.
That is disturbing, man.
And just the other day, I was like, well, I need to put up the qualifying round of Smark Madness. So, planned out as much as I can, all the way up until February, and we just got into March. So
we really need to revisit your I want to be a house and provide full structure. Like, that's crazy, dude.
But, that's what you get when you got Tony Mango working on things. He gives you structure. And speaking of the Smark Madness, everybody, one last thing for me to mention here is the Smark Madness qualifying round is up, and that is going to end at the end of this week. I am probably shutting the poll off on Thursday night and putting up round 1 officially on Friday morning. I haven't quite 100% figured that out yet, but what we are doing this year is we're trying to figure out, oddly enough, the best foreign object in pro wrestling history. And we've already got 20 out of the 32 chosen. They're guarantee ones, like, obviously, steel chair, what's going to be on there. Obviously, the Money in the Bank briefcase was going to be on there. There's a lot of things that are kind of like that. And we had a list of a bunch of other ones, so it became, the qualifying round was choose the remaining 12. And on that list, really quickly, in no particular order because I didn't bother alphabetizing it, what you're voting for 12 of these, so keep that in mind if you haven't voted already. Triple H's Sledgehammer, Hacksaw Jim Duggan's 2x4, The Undertaker's Urn, Mr. Sacco, or Santino Morales' Cobra, one or the other. Finley's shillelagh, Al Snow's head, not his actual head that he used to carry around, Big Boss Man's nightstick, Jim Cornette's tennis racket, Jimmy Hart's megaphone, Owen Hart's Slammy Award, Paul Heyman's cell phone, Steve Blackman's Eskrima sticks, stop sign in general, chains, strap, like a strap match type thing, a lead pipe. You've got the weightlifting belt that people have used over the years, the coal miner's glove, lighting tubes, which are more on like the CZW side of things, but I figured I'd put that in there as an option. The slapjack, if you're a big fan of Stevie Ray, bowling balls, the TV cameras that they used to use, like think Psycho Sid versus Shawn Michaels, the TV monitors that are ringside, and in one generalized kind of thing, loaded apparel, which is like, there's something in the purse. It's a loaded purse, or it's a loaded boot, or whatever. It's just loaded blank. And we've gotten enough votes by now that I know where some of these are definitely going. Like, I'm not going to spoil anything too crazy here, but Triple H's Sledgehammer.
Gun on the list now that you said loaded blank.
No, not Pillman's gun. Like Triple H's Sledgehammer is the number one that's got voted on right now. So obviously everybody knew that was going to be in the mix. So that's one of the ones that's guaranteed to be on this finalized list of 32. And if you want to be a part of picking what these things are, so that way you can help determine the bracket, then vote as soon as you possibly can. Friday is when the round 1 list will be going up, and you have a little bit more time. But it's Mark Madness, everybody. We're in March. So that's what we're going to be doing throughout March, and eventually that's going to end, and we're going to take care of that after WrestleMania, because we're going to continue that onward, and those are what you need to be aware of. That's all the events and stuff you can find on the pay-per-view schedule on smarkoutmoment.com. Obviously, for every single one of those events, we're going to do predictions, and we're going to do a post-show for all of them, including Fastlane, that's happening this week. Fastlane predictions are coming up sometime on Wednesday. We'll be recording and editing and uploading that, so to be aware of that, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel and ring the bell for notifications, and you will be finding out when those updated predictions go up on the YouTube channel. You could also like and share and favorite and do all that kind of stuff like that. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. You can check out the stuff on smarkoutmoment.com. If you want to help show your support for us on the money side of things, you got a little spare change you want to toss our way, couple different ways that you could do that. One of them being the Patreon account, and with that one you've got different tiers, so check that out. You can do a direct donation. It's at the bottom of the page on smarkoutmoment.com. You can buy a t-shirt or some other kind of merchandise on the TeePublic or Redbubble shops. You could also do the same thing on all the stuff that's applying to Fanboys Anonymous. So go to fanboysanonymous.com, follow the Facebook and Twitter accounts, subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out the TeePublic and the Redbubble. For those things, hit up the Patreon if you want to see more Fanboys Anonymous content, including, later on this week, Captain Marvel is coming out, so you will definitely see my review of that. I can't 100% say that this is a guarantee yet, but it seems like it's probably going to be the case. There is more than likely going to be one contest, if not 2 contests, that are posted on Smark Out Moment pretty soon to tie in for WrestleMania. So maybe you can win a Funko Pop, maybe you can win a t-shirt, or maybe they'll tell me, fuck you, we don't want to do that anymore. And then I'll say what my idea was, and that kind of a thing. So stay tuned for that. What else do I got going on? Fucking so many things, way too many things. Sleep's not one of them. Rob, what do you got going on?
I'll finish out your plugs. There you go. Bleacher Report and e-wrestling news. I also have e-wrestling news. So go there, check out the articles that I write. Tell me they're great and that you like my stuff and that I'm passionate. Tell me I suck and that I'm subpar. Hey, it's your voice. You can do what you want with it. Other than that, I've got Time Killer Apparel, which is my clothing line for shirts, hoodies, hats, and more, hopefully coming soon, but there's only so much I can do when I'm working off of just a website. And that's it for the stuff that is announced. Oh, by the way, sorry, check out 2001 Wrestling Odyssey, February, currently up on the website. January is up there as well. March should be coming at some point, and maybe the next couple of weeks. And yeah, that's it for me for now.
That's it for both of us, everybody. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your support. Thank you for all the other kind of stuff that's going on there. Unless you're telling us to fuck off, in which case, no thank you. No thank you at all. And we will see you next time with the Fastlane predictions coming up on Wednesday, everybody. Adios for now, though. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.